Imagine waking up to a message from a friend, not good morning, not wanna grab coffee, but just a link. A video. And 5 words that made my stomach drop. Dude, is this your dad? I tapped the link. It opened to a TikTok. There was my dad, laughing over a plate of ribs at a backyard cookout, drink in hand, shirt half buttoned like always. And right beside him, holding the phone, smirking behind the camera, was my sister Talia. "We just guilt Ethan a little," my dad says with a chuckle. He sends the money. It's like clockwork. The boy's got a spine made of pudding. Talia giggles. The video cuts to text. "When your brother is your family's personal ATM #bank of Ethan." By the time I saw it, it had over 1.2 million views. That was the moment everything shattered. Not because of the money. Not because of the public shame. But because the people I trusted most had turned me into a punchline, for likes, for laughs, for attention. My name is Ethan, I'm 30 years old, and I live in Austin, Texas. I work in software. I mind my business. And for years, I supported my parents and siblings without asking for anything in return. I thought I was helping them. But that video? That was my wake-up call. What came after wasn't just about money. It was about pride, power, betrayal, and finally, freedom. And trust me, the betrayal was just the beginning. Thank you for being here. For listening. For seeing me. If this story hit home, drop a 1 in the comments. I want to hear your story. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Someone out there needs this today. I was never the loud one in my family. Never the rebel, never the favorite, just the one who kept his head down and handled things. That's always been me, Ethan. The reliable one. I moved out of the house at 21, got my degree in computer science, and started building a life in Austin. I landed a solid job in software development, lived modestly, and saved carefully. By 30, I wasn't rich, but I was comfortable. And when my family started struggling, I didn't hesitate. I paid off my parents' overdue rent without a second thought. When the car broke down, I covered the repairs. When my younger brother said he wanted to try a few college courses, I sent the tuition money. I didn't keep receipts. I didn't expect anything in return. It wasn't about credit, it was about loyalty. About doing what a good son was supposed to do. I thought that mattered. My dad, Frank, was never the warm type. A construction foreman his whole life, he believed in hard work, discipline, and control. He barked more than he talked, and every favor he ever gave came with a shadow of a debt. Even when I helped out, he made it sound like I was just returning the favor. "After everything we did for you," he'd say. Like love was a ledger. My mom, Teresa, was the softer one on the surface, but she knew how to weaponize guilt better than anyone I'd ever met. "We're so lucky to have you," she'd say sweetly, right before asking for help with groceries. Or utilities. Or another loan. If I hesitated, she'd sigh just enough to remind me that I was disappointing her. Talia, my sister, was the family's golden girl. She was 2 years younger than me and had somehow never worked a day in her life that didn't involve ring lights and hashtags. She called herself a digital creator, but all she did was post TikToks of her skincare routines and get free PR boxes from brands with more money than sense. My parents adored her. Always had. My younger brother, Jordan, was 22 going on 15. He still lived at home, didn't work, didn't study, didn't contribute. But he had new sneakers every month and spent most of his time on Twitch or sleeping until 2 p.m. I don't think I'd ever seen him pay for a single meal when I was around. No one ever told me to take care of them. But over time, it became expected. They didn't say thank you anymore. They just sent me bank details. I noticed it most on birthdays and holidays. I'd send them gifts, cover dinners, even fly home when I didn't have the time, only to be met with lukewarm hugs and quick glances at price tags. Talia once forgot to get me anything for my birthday and said, "You already have everything anyway." My mom laughed. Dad nodded like it was a reasonable thing to say. But I let it go. Again and again. I told myself they were just stressed. That helping them was the right thing to do. That maybe someday, they'd look at me the way they looked at her. Deep down, though, I could feel something shifting. Something bitter, rising slowly under the surface. It wasn't just exhaustion, it was the feeling of being invisible in a family I was keeping afloat. But I kept quiet. I smiled. I paid. Because that's what I'd always done. And they thought I'd always do it. Until one day. I didn't. It happened on a Wednesday. I was between meetings, half focused on a code deployment, when my phone buzzed. It was a message from Marcus, an old college friend I hadn't talked to in months. All it said was, "Dude, is this your dad?" There was a link underneath. I hesitated for a second before tapping it. The video opened straight into chaos, a backyard, beer bottles clinking, someone laughing off screen. It took a second to realize it was my parents' place. Then, the camera panned to the man at the center of it all, my dad, Frank, planted in a lawn chair like a king surveying his court, wearing his usual muscle tee and smirk. He was mid-sentence, waving a rib in the air for emphasis. "We just guilt Ethan a little, he sends the money. It's like clockwork." The boy's got a spine made of pudding. The group around him roared with laughter. And then the camera turned, briefly catching my sister Talia's face. She was the one filming. Her voice piped up right after his punchline. "ATM Ethan strikes again." On-screen text popped up. "Our walking ATM #FamilyPerks #thanks bro." I stared at the screen. For a moment, I thought it had to be some kind of cruel edit, a deep fake, a joke gone wrong. But it wasn't. It was their voices. Their backyard. Their real laughter. Real betrayal. The video had already racked up nearly 900,000 views. By the end of the day, it crossed 1 million. Comments streamed in faster than I could read. "Man, Ethan needs to grow a spine FR. I'd stop sending cash so fast. LMAO, this is why I ghosted my fam." Someone even tagged me. They'd connected the dots through Talia's older videos. I felt like I'd been stripped naked in the middle of a packed stadium and handed a microphone so they could all laugh harder. I scrolled back and watched it again. My dad wasn't even angry in the video. He was proud. Comfortable. Confident in the idea that I'd never stand up to him. And my sister, my own blood, was filming it, branding me with hashtags and emojis like I was some pathetic internet character they'd invented for clout. It wasn't just that they mocked me. It was that they did it so casually. Like this was normal. Like this had been normal for years, and I'd just never seen it from the outside. My stomach turned. My hands felt numb. I sat back in my chair and stared at the office ceiling, the fluorescent lights suddenly too bright, too artificial. I'd given them everything. Rent. Repairs. Groceries. Tuition. Vacations. And they thought it was a joke. Not one of them stopped that video from happening. Not one of them thought, "Hey, maybe we shouldn't post this. Maybe this is cruel." They laughed. They filmed. They uploaded. And then they watched it go viral. And I watched something inside me quietly snap. I closed the video, but the words kept echoing in my head. Spineless. Clockwork. ATM Ethan. I sat there in silence, heart thudding against my ribs, my fingers twitching above my laptop. The world around me, the code I was writing, the Slack pings, the meeting notification blinking in the corner of my screen, blurred into white noise. I wasn't angry. Not yet. I was just hollow. Like someone had carved a hole in my chest and left it gaping. I stared at the screensaver on my phone. A picture of my niece from Talia's Instagram, her smiling, holding the birthday gift I'd paid for. A new iPad. I'd overnighted it last month when Talia said the kid was falling behind in school. Said it would mean the world to her. Now that same person had posted a video mocking me for helping. And it wasn't the first time. I started replaying it all in my mind, frame by frame. Every wire transfer. Every check. Every just this once that turned into like always. The month I skipped my vacation because they needed help with the car. The time I paid Jordan's tuition even though he dropped out 2 weeks later. The groceries I bought so Talia wouldn't stress cook and miss filming days. The hotel upgrades. The extra spending money. The Christmas I spent alone because they had a full house but still asked me to Venmo for decorations. I thought I was being a good son. A good brother. The kind of man who quietly showed up for his family even when they didn't show up for him. But they didn't see me that way. They didn't see me at all. They saw a debit card. A 9 to 5 with a face. I wasn't part of the family, I was the bank funding it. And what gutted me the most wasn't the joke, or the laughter, or even the views. It was that none of them ever thought I'd see it. They were so sure of my silence. So sure I'd just keep giving. So sure I'd never fight back. And for a long time, they were right. I didn't text. I didn't call. I didn't ask for an apology. Instead, I sat down at my kitchen table, opened my laptop, and logged into my bank account. It took less than 5 minutes to undo years of blind loyalty. First, I canceled the automatic transfer that sent $1,200 to my parents every month like clockwork. Then I locked the secondary card Mom used for emergencies. Disabled the payment apps Talia and Jordan used to casually request money with a string of emojis and a passive-aggressive THX. I went down the list, subscriptions I'd been covering for their streaming services, cell phone bills, even a grocery delivery account tied to my card. One by one, I shut it all off like turning off lights in a house I no longer lived in. No dramatic declarations. No confrontations. Just quiet clicks. Clean breaks. Then I picked up my phone, went to my contacts, and hit block: Mom, Dad, Talia, Jordan. Done. The silence that followed was louder than I expected. For the first time in years, my phone didn't buzz with requests. There were no guilt-ridden voicemails. No hey, real quick texts. Just stillness. Clean air. And in that quiet, something strange happened. I felt free. Not happy, not yet. But free. I walked around my apartment in a daze. Poured myself a glass of water and stared out the window like I'd stepped into a different version of my life. One where I wasn't constantly bracing for the next ask, the next manipulation disguised as family duty. I should have been furious. And maybe a part of me was. But mostly, I felt calm. Almost unnervingly calm. Like I'd finally put down a weight I didn't even know I'd been carrying. That night, I slept deeper than I had in months. No late-night texts from Talia asking for just a little help with content gear. No call from Mom claiming Dad was too proud to ask but needed a favor. No Jordan pinging me for gas money even though he hadn't worked a day in 6 months. Just silence. Blissful, deafening silence. It didn't feel like revenge. It felt like recovery. And for the first time, I didn't feel like the bad guy for saying no. I felt like a man who'd finally remembered his worth. The silence didn't last long. By the 3rd day, the dam broke. It started with my dad. 3 missed calls in the span of an hour. Then a voicemail so sharp it made my jaw clench. You ungrateful little shit. This is how you repay us? After everything we did for you? Keep this up, and don't bother calling yourself part of this family anymore. I didn't flinch. Just hit delete. Then came the texts from Mom. Long, rambling paragraphs filled with emotional landmines. Honey, we didn't mean to hurt you. Your father's just stressed. Please don't do this. After all we've sacrificed for you. I carried you for 9 months, Ethan. Does that mean nothing? There it was, the subtle weaponry she always used. Not yelling. Just guilt wrapped in motherly concern. But the messages didn't stop. We don't have enough for rent this month. I don't know how we'll get by without you. Do you even care what happens to us? I didn't respond. Not to her. Not to Dad. And not to Talia, though her messages were in a league of their own. Wow. So now you're ghosting us? It was a joke, Ethan. You're seriously being dramatic. It wasn't even about you. You're making yourself the victim like always. I read each one once. Then archived them without another thought. What shocked me wasn't their desperation, it was their complete lack of accountability. No one said sorry. Not really. Not for the video, not for the years of taking, not for laughing at me like I was a fool. They didn't want forgiveness. They wanted access. And when they realized they no longer had it, they panicked. I guess when your golden goose stops laying eggs, you don't ask why, it's easier to just start screaming. It was just after 6 p.m. on a Sunday when the knock came. Not a light tap. Not hesitant. No, it was that hard, impatient knock I recognized from childhood. The kind my dad used when he was already mad before the door opened. I stood up from the couch and walked slowly to the door. Peeked through the peephole. There they were. Dad, arms crossed, jaw tight. Mom, with that practiced, wounded look on her face. Talia, in full performance mode, crossbody bag, sunglasses still on, like she was too famous to be standing in a hallway. I opened the door. None of us said anything for a moment. Can we come in? Mom finally asked, her voice low and sweet, like sugar poured over a crack in the floor. I stepped aside. Sure. They walked in like they owned the place. Like they were still in charge of the script. I closed the door behind them and gestured toward the kitchen table. Sit, I said simply. They obeyed. I walked to the counter, picked up the manila folder I'd prepared, and set it down in the center of the table like it was evidence in a trial. What's this? Dad snapped, already annoyed. Everything I've paid for, I said. Rent. Bills. Tuition. Groceries. Birthdays. That trip to Vegas you swore was for a work event. All of it. Dad scoffed and pushed the folder away. So you're keeping score now? Yes, I said. I am. Because I need you to understand something. I pulled up a chair, sat across from them, and met each of their eyes in turn. I owe you nothing. Talia rolled her eyes. God, Ethan. Are you seriously doing this right now? You're acting like we scammed you. You did, I said calmly. We're family, Mom whispered, voice cracking just enough to sound sincere. And you used that word as leverage, I replied. The room was still. No yelling. No theatrics. Just tension and truth. I'm not angry, I added. I'm just done. Dad stood abruptly, knocking the folder off the table. The papers scattered to the floor, receipts fluttering like confetti. You're a selfish little brat, he hissed. You think your money makes you better than us? I didn't move. Didn't blink. I don't think I'm better, I said. I think I'm finished being used. The silence after that was louder than anything he could have yelled. Dad's face twisted into something between rage and disbelief. He jabbed a finger at me, voice rising like a threat. You think you're better than us now? Just because you make a little money? Just because you live in a nice place with your fancy job? I didn't flinch. No, I said, my voice steady. I just stopped pretending you respected me. That landed. His mouth opened, then closed. He looked at Mom, then Talia, waiting for backup. Talia sighed dramatically, pulling out her phone like it was instinct. I saw the screen light up, she was already recording. Her default defense mechanism, document, control, spin. Unreal, she muttered under her breath, angling the phone toward me. Gotta get this gaslighting on camera. I looked at her. Really looked. She wasn't smug this time. She was nervous. Like she already knew this wouldn't play the way she wanted it to. You still think this is content? I asked her quietly. That there's a version of this where you come out looking good? She hesitated, then lowered the phone just slightly. Post it, I said. Let them see what real disappointment looks like. Mom sniffled beside her. Ethan, please, don't do this. We didn't mean to hurt you. We were just... No, I cut in. You didn't care if it hurt me. You just didn't think I'd ever say something. I stood up slowly, walked around to the door, and opened it. You lost access to me the moment you laughed at me, I said, voice low. This version of me? The one who pays, who stays quiet, who forgives everything. He's gone. They didn't move at first. Dad's eyes narrowed, but he didn't say another word. Talia looked down at her phone like it might save her. Mom stood, clutching her purse like it was the only thing she could still hold on to. One by one, they stepped out. I closed the door behind them. Locked it. Then leaned against it, breathing out slowly. No rage. No shouting. No tears. Just silence. And finally, peace. I didn't post the video right away. For a few days, I just sat with it. Replayed the confrontation in my head. Listened to my own words, the way they came out measured and calm, not vindictive. Just honest. And then I made a choice. I uploaded the entire conversation anonymously to a burner account. No flashy edits. No clickbait title. Just a simple caption. This is what family manipulation looks like. At first, it sat untouched. A few views. A few likes. Then, somehow, it caught fire. Within 48 hours, the video had over 300,000 views. By the end of the week, it had crossed 2 million. The comments poured in like a tidal wave. This hit way too close to home. You can hear how calm he is, that's when you know he's done. Why do toxic families always play the victim when they lose control? Whoever you are, I'm proud of you. This generation is breaking cycles, and I'm here for it. People stitched the video, duetted it, made commentary breakdowns. Therapists on TikTok used it in discussions about financial abuse and emotional boundaries. Reddit threads broke down every frame like it was a courtroom drama. But the real fallout didn't hit until someone recognized the voices. It didn't take long. Talia had posted so much of her life online that matching her voice to her profile was effortless. And just like that, the court of public opinion turned on her. Her sponsorships started vanishing. Brands pulled her name from PR lists. One even made a public statement about reevaluating partnerships to ensure alignment with our values. She tried to play it cool, posted vague stories about cancel culture and how people don't know the full story. But the internet wasn't buying it. Because the full story was right there. In her voice. In her laughter. In her camera, aimed straight at a brother she claimed to love while recording him like a zoo exhibit. My dad didn't take it well either. I heard from a mutual cousin that he was furious. That he'd stormed into his union hall yelling about betrayal and online lies. That people he'd known for years suddenly started treating him differently, more cautiously. Less like a respected foreman, more like a ticking bomb. Their image was crumbling, and they didn't know how to handle it. But I did. I handled it in silence. Because for once, the truth was loud enough. The ripple effect was fast and messy. Once the internet connected the dots, it wasn't just strangers weighing in. My extended family started chiming in too. Some tried to stay neutral, but most couldn't help picking a side. And suddenly, people who had never cared much about my quiet existence were now texting me at odd hours with messages like, "Hey, just saw the video. I had no idea it was like that for you. You've always been the one holding everything together. Respect. Talia really did you dirty, man. I'm sorry." Even a couple of cousins I hadn't spoken to since high school reached out, not with pity, but with understanding. Like something in my story cracked something open in theirs. Others, of course, weren't so supportive. One aunt left me a long voicemail full of that old-school family logic: we don't air our dirty laundry. What happened to loyalty? As if loyalty meant letting yourself be humiliated without ever fighting back. But I didn't reply. Not to the critics. Not to the defenders. Instead, I watched quietly as the narrative shifted, not just about me, but about people like me. Quiet sons. Unseen daughters. The financial backbone of families who never said thank you, only sent another bill. My inbox started filling with private messages from strangers. People pouring out their own stories of guilt, exploitation, sacrifice. I thought I was the only one. I've never felt seen until now. You gave me the strength to cut my parents off, and I don't feel guilty anymore. I didn't expect to become anyone's symbol. But somehow, by standing up once, I became a mirror for so many others. I wasn't just Ethan anymore. I was proof. Proof that walking away doesn't make you selfish. It makes you free. It had been 4 months since I heard her voice. Talia's name flashed on my screen late one evening. I was debating whether to let it ring out when something told me to answer. Her voice was quiet. No dramatics. No filters, literally or figuratively. Just her. Raw. Bare. "Hey," she said. "I know I'm probably the last person you want to hear from." I didn't say anything. She took a breath. "Dad's sick. He collapsed last week. They found something, heart-related, maybe more. He's been in and out of the ICU." There was silence again, like she didn't know what to do with her own words. He's asking for you," she finally added. I leaned against the kitchen counter, heart still, but my chest heavy. "He wants to talk," she said. "He doesn't say it, but I think he knows what he did. I think he wants a chance to fix it." Her voice broke a little on that last part. It wasn't a performance this time. There was no camera. No audience. Just her. The sister I hadn't seen in years. "I don't know if it means anything," she whispered, "but I'm sorry." I didn't answer right away. Not out of spite. Just, I didn't know yet. I stared out the window for a long time that night, city lights twinkling like quiet questions. The next morning, I drove to the hospital. When I walked into the room, he looked nothing like the man I remembered. His shoulders were smaller. His face pale. The tubes running into his arms made him look like he was tethered to the last thread of control he had left. He looked at me, really looked, and I saw it. Not anger. Not pride. Shame. His mouth moved slightly, like he wanted to say something, but no words came out. Just silence and a faint rasp that evaporated before it could become language. I sat beside him. Not long. Just enough. "I don't need an apology," I said quietly. "And you don't need to beg." He blinked slowly, barely holding my gaze. "I forgive you," I added. "But I can't carry you anymore." He closed his eyes. I stood up, rested my hand lightly on the railing of the bed, then turned and walked out. No dramatic exit. No need for final words. Sometimes peace isn't found in reconciliation. Sometimes, it's just found in letting go. I never went back to the hospital. Not because I was angry, but because I didn't need to. Forgiveness, I learned, doesn't require a reunion. It's not about making things whole again. Sometimes, it's about choosing peace over pain. About stepping out of the roles you were assigned and deciding who you actually are. For the first time in my life, I wasn't playing provider, fixer, golden goose, emotional buffer. I was just Ethan. And that was enough. I didn't hate them, not anymore. That anger had burned out quietly, replaced with something colder, cleaner. Acceptance. I saw them for who they were. Who they always had been. And I finally understood that belonging wasn't about blood, it was about safety, respect, and choice. I'd spent years handing out pieces of myself, thinking love was something you earned by giving. Now, I knew better. I didn't know anyone access to me just because we shared a last name. In the months that followed, I started talking about it, first in anonymous forums, then in long-form posts, then finally on video. I never used names, never chased revenge. I just told the truth. And people listened. My inbox filled with stories like mine. Quiet sons. Overlooked daughters. People who had spent decades being the strong one, the bank, the afterthought. People who needed someone to say, "It's okay to stop." So I kept sharing. I built a blog. Hosted Q&As. Wrote about how to set financial boundaries, how to spot manipulation in family love, how to reclaim your voice without guilt. I didn't try to be an influencer. I just wanted to be useful. And slowly, the shame faded. The ache dulled. The fear of being alone? Gone. I wasn't alone. I was free. Now, my life is quieter. I keep a small circle. People who speak kindly, who don't measure my value in dollars or favors. I go on walks without checking my phone for urgent family messages. I spend weekends reading, building side projects, grabbing dinner with people who see me, not what I can do for them. The weight is gone. And every now and then, I catch myself smiling for no reason at all. Not because everything is perfect. But because, for once, it's mine. What would you do if your own family turned you into the punchline of their private jokes, then came crawling back when they needed something? Would you forgive them, give them another chance, hope that maybe this time they'd treat you differently? Or would you walk away for good, knowing that respect should never be begged for? Tell me below. Your story might be exactly what someone else needs to hear today. Family isn't defined by blood, it's defined by respect. You can love people from a distance. You can forgive them, quietly, without ever opening your door again. You don't have to yell. You don't have to explain yourself a dozen times. You don't have to bleed just to prove your loyalty. You can be kind and still protect your peace. You can be generous and still say no. You can be strong, especially when you're finally done being strong for everyone else. Because the truth is, love without boundaries becomes self-destruction. An obligation without appreciation becomes chains. You don't owe anyone your silence. Or your savings. Or your soul. And the moment you choose yourself, not out of spite, but out of survival, that's the moment the cycle breaks. For good. If this story moved you, even just a little, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more real stories about courage, boundaries, and becoming who you were meant to be. Your support helps these voices be heard. And somewhere out there, someone who feels invisible today might hear this and realize they're not alone. Together, we can create a space where dignity isn't something you have to earn. It's something you're allowed to protect. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. And most of all, thanks for choosing yourself.